What's up, guys? We finally made it. We are back here on Thursday, March 28th for NCAA Tournament Sweet 16 action. The Wednesday games haven't all finished, but so far it's been an absolute bloodbath. We need the Denver Nuggets to come through with the under and maybe the win by more than 6.5 to be a day saver for us. Things in the NBA today were absolute anarchy. We did get the Clippers under and the Knicks minus 12.5. Those are right, but other than that, things have been looking very bleak. We saw the Cavs lose straight up to the Charlotte Hornets in a game that had a ton of offense. That was absolutely crazy. The Knicks scored 145 points. Not exactly something we saw coming. It's been a wild day out there. We're very happy to just get back into the college basketball streets, forget that one ever happened, and reset. Let's get back on the right track here in the NCAA tournament. Smash the thumbs up button if you like seeing these picks every day, and subscribe to the channel. The support has been absolutely crazy lately, but look at this, over 75% of viewers still aren't subscribed. It's 100% free and can keep you from missing out on these picks. Our videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. Click the link in the description to go over there and join our free email list, and check out our top confidence plays on all the major sports. Comment below to let us know what bets you're looking at today and how your bracket is looking headed into these Sweet 16 games, or anything else you want to say about these picks, these videos, or anything you see here. Let me know if you like this mix of NCAA and NBA picks in one video, or would like to see something else. I respond to every single comment, and I'll give you my best advice on your picks to help us all cash some bets. Now let's get into our first game of the day. We've got Clemson going up against Arizona in the West Region Sweet 16. Clemson has not been a team that I've really been on here in the NCAA tournament, and they have made me pay for it. The Tigers have been looking very good. They beat New Mexico very convincingly, and then they got a solid win over Baylor. This team has been playing their best ball of the season at the perfect time. In the win over New Mexico, we saw Creighton jump out to an early, huge lead. They absolutely dominated in the first half. They were leading 42-28 going into halftime, guys. That's absolutely crazy. They just dominated what I would have guessed would be a very solid Mountain West opponent in the first round. Yeah, not a great matchup for New Mexico, but just in general, we saw Clemson play very well. Kept things about even on the boards, which can be a concern for Clemson. They're not the best rebounding team. They also defended the three-point line really well, although a lot of that has to go at New Mexico's door. If you're shooting 3 of 23 from long range, it can't all be laid on the doorstep of the other team playing solid defense. In the win, we saw Hunter go off for 21 points. We saw PJ Hall score 14 points in that game. He was very efficient. He went 2 for 3 from three-point range. The Tigers bench didn't look amazing, but they didn't look terrible, and obviously the pressure really wasn't on them here in this absolute blowout victory. Getting past their first round matchup is something you kind of expect a 6 seed to do, but in their next matchup taking on number 3 Baylor, it did not look so bright out there for Clemson. This seemed like a game where they would have a very hard time against a longer, more athletic, and more physical opponent, but that is not what happened. Once again, we saw Clemson jump out to a big halftime lead. They were leading by 10 points, 35-25 at halftime. In that game, we saw Clemson shoot 35% from three-point range. Very solid. Once again, though, their bench was kind of a black hole. Not a lot of production coming out of there. Godfrey did have 8 points in 19 minutes. And he had some rebounds, but just in general, this bench is not very good. We saw Hunter go off for 20 points. We did see 4 Clemson starters score in double figures in that second round win, and they were just able to hold the fort against a furious Baylor comeback in the second half. Clemson defended the three-point line very well again, allowing only 25% shooting from deep from Baylor, who is a pretty good three-point shooting team. Also, Clemson stayed even on the board, something we didn't really think they would be able to do against a longer, more athletic team, although we haven't really seen Baylor be a very good rebounding team in general this season. Just a trend that we're seeing Clemson rebound the ball a little bit better here in the tournament. Over the course of the season, we didn't really see Clemson look that great in the ACC, and at the end of the year, they finished things off with back-to-back losses and losing 3 of their last 4 overall. Not what you would expect from a team that's going to advance in the NCAA tournament and advance so convincingly against a couple of very solid opponents. In general, this team has been much more focused on offense than on defense. Their rebounding has not exactly been amazing, and they've relied a lot on PJ Hall for their scoring. He's averaging 18.5 points per game, shooting almost 50% from the field. In general, against elite opponents this season, we A, didn't see Clemson play that many tough teams, and B, when they did, they actually had kind of mixed success. They did have a win over UNC. They lost a very close game to Duke. They lost a convincing game to UNC, but they also lost to teams like Memphis in their non-conference, but they beat Alabama, so they had mixed success. They did play well in their non-conference schedule, there's no denying that, but this isn't exactly a team we thought would come in here and be elite in the NCAA tournament. Clemson is going up against one of the most elite teams in the field right now. They're taking on the Arizona Wildcats, who have had a much easier time here in their first 2 rounds. They took down Long Beach State by 20 points, a very convincing win. Arizona did look a little bit shaky in the first half. In that game, we actually saw Arizona get slightly out-rebounded, which is pretty crazy given how good of a team they've been on the boards. They came away with a comfortable win thanks to shooting the ball well from 3, getting to the line, and being relatively efficient from there. They had a lot of assists in that game. They kept the turnover numbers very low. They only had 9 turnovers in that one. All 5 of their starters scored in double figures in that win. We saw Boswell go off for 20 points. A very solid night from him. Arizona's bench did not really look good in that game. It seemed like the bench was maybe even a little bit more nervous than the starters were in the first half. It just did not look great in that second unit. But nonetheless, Arizona advanced past their first round opponent, something that they have a history of possibly struggling in. In the next round, they went up against a Dayton squad that I felt was very overvalued. Arizona won that game by 10 points, thanks to playing some solid defense and winning the battle of the boards. Arizona also shot the ball very well from 3 in that game. They made 8 of 18 3-pointers, good for 44% from the field. They were very efficient from the line once again, and they did have that important rebounding edge. That's something this team should be getting comfortably. They've got all the height, all the length, all the athleticism. This team should be very comfortable crashing the boards against any opponent that you've really got out there. Over the course of their regular season, we saw Arizona come out on top in the Pac-12. They didn't exactly dominate. This was a team that had some weird performances down the stretch, like losing to USC. They lost to Oregon in the conference tournament, so that wasn't a great look, but they dominated Oregon earlier in the season. This team had some very solid non-conference wins, taking down Michigan State, taking down Duke. In general, they've been one of the best teams in the nation, especially on paper, where they're ranking in the top 8 in basically every major category. This team can dominate on the boards, they have very good assist numbers, and their offense can be absolutely off the charts, led by Caleb Love and his nearly 20 points per game on over 40% shooting. In this matchup, we see that Clemson is a very solid team against the spread, going 19-14-1 against the spread, but Arizona has been even better. The Wildcats are 22-13 against the spread over the course of this year. We see Arizona is -7.5 in this one. I think this is going to be the end of the road for Clemson here, guys. I don't think they really are able to keep pace in this one. They're going against an elite, very talented team with a ton of size, a ton of athleticism, and elite rebounding. We don't really expect Clemson to be able to come out and surprise them in the first half in this game like they've done with their other 2 opponents. Give me Arizona -7.5 in this one. Next up, we're looking at one of the more interesting matchups of the day. We've got the San Diego State Aztecs taking on the Yukon Huskies. San Diego State has had 2 weirdly interesting opponents in their opening round games. They took down UAB in the first round, 69-65. UAB is a very tough opponent. They've played up to the level of competition. They were looking unstoppable ever since that meltdown they had against Memphis. San Diego State just played great down the stretch in that game to get a very, very close win. Their solid first half really helped put them over the top, and like it usually does for this team, things came down to Jadon Ledee just making shots. He scored a staggering 32 points in that win. It's tough when you're just relying on one player for the majority of your offense, but man, he really seems up to the task. He was very efficient in that game. He was great at the free throw line. He even led the team in rebounding in that game, and kind of importantly here, we saw the San Diego State bench look very, very good. In the second round, they got a blowout win over Yale. It was pretty clear that San Diego State was by far the better, more athletic, just overall much, much better team in this game. They were able to clear the bench in this one, but their bench once again looked pretty good with some solid contributions coming from players that we normally see in their bench rotation. Ledee went off for 26 points in this game, extremely efficient, 2 for 2 from 3, 9 of 12 from the field overall. He didn't get to the line quite as much, but it was still good rebounding the ball. This is a superstar here we've got in the making in Jadon Ledee, and there's a large burden placed on his shoulders. If he plays well, the San Diego State team does well. If he struggles, things are going to be kind of tough. And they're going to need to play their best game of the season taking on the Yukon Huskies. Yukon comes into this game. They've had a very easy road so far. Obviously, their opening round cupcake matchup against Stetson, where they won 91-52. Yukon dominated that game from the jump. They out-rebounded Stetson 45-30. There's not really much you can take from a 1 versus 16 matchup in this game, but we did see the Yukon bench look very good. This really just appears to be a team without weaknesses. All of their starters scored in double figures. They shot the ball almost 40% from 3. They didn't really get to the free throw line in that game, but I don't think they were really trying to get to the 3-point line. That wasn't really the focus in this game for them, or at least that's not what it felt like. They just wanted to get this win checked off and head on to the second round. And in the second round, they faced a relatively tough opponent, we would have thought, going up against Northwestern. Didn't look tough for Yukon, though. Yukon is crazy good, guys. They are clearly looking like the best team in the nation to me. Against Northwestern, they held one of the best players in the nation to only 5 of 15 shooting. That is terrible. Poor Bowie. He tried his heart out. He's an absolute monster. This won't be the last time we're watching him play basketball, but just in general, that was not his best night thanks to some crazy good defense from Yukon. The Huskies shot only 3 of 22 from three-point range in this game, and they still managed to win by nearly 20 points. They won the rebounding battle in this game. We saw just how unstoppable this team can be in general. They could get to the basket whenever they wanted to. It just didn't matter that they weren't making their threes. They were never going to lose this game, even though they couldn't throw it in the ocean from deep. This squad is looking absolutely unstoppable. Yukon is currently minus 10.5 in this one. We see that San Diego State is only 14-20 against the spread over the course of the season. They also rely very much on one individual score, kind of like Northwestern did. Yukon is a staggering 24-12 against the spread over the course of this year. Guys, give me Yukon minus 10.5 in this one. This could be one of my bigger bets of the day. I know it's very chalky, but I just don't think there's any way that San Diego State keeps this close, especially if Ledee is unable to get loose, and I think he's going to have a very, very hard time against that stifling Yukon defense. Next up, we've got Alabama going against UNC in a game that has the highest total of all 4 of these games on Thursday by a large margin. Alabama comes into this one. They haven't exactly shocked the world given the opponents they've been going up against. In their opening round, they put up 109 points against Charleston, a very good offensive team as well. Charleston actually scored 96 points of their own in that game. Alabama very, very clearly let their foot off the gas in that one. There in the second half, they had built a big lead in the first half, so you kind of expect that a little bit. We saw Alabama shoot 56.5% from three-point range. They went 13 of 23 from deep. They got to the free throw line a staggering 37 times, and for a team that makes its three-pointers, they don't shoot the ball particularly well from the line. They only made 65% of their free throws in that game. That's a number you could see them bouncing back from, but also a little bit of a concern. Like, we're not gonna lie, seeing a team do that badly at the line isn't gonna just not be something we care about. We also saw Sears go off. He scored 30 points, very, very solid. We also saw Latrell Wrightsell Jr. have a very good game, which is a bit concerning because they're unsure whether or not he's gonna even be able to play here in this game against North Carolina. He's currently being listed as day-to-day or considered day-to-day. Obviously, injury reports in the NCAA are quite a bit different. Apparently, he's been reevaluated every single day. He took a pretty nasty elbow to the dome in that game against Grand Canyon, so I don't know, guys. Concussions aren't something you want to mess with, and it's not really something that teams tend to mess with, so it'll be interesting to see if he even plays in this game. They're going to need everything they can get in this one. They did play really well in their second round game, taking down Grand Canyon by 11 points. It was a much more low-scoring, defensive-oriented game than you would expect to see from Alabama. They didn't shoot the ball nearly as well from three, and Grand Canyon's athleticism seemed to really give them some trouble. Sears wasn't really able to get loose the way he normally is. He did make 5 of 11 threes though, so that helped him get to 26 points. This squad really needs Sears to play excellent on a nightly basis, even though they have lots of scoring, and I'm not going to call this a one-man show. His success is really this team's success, and he's going to need to have a lot of success going up against North Carolina. Through their first 2 games, the UNC has looked nearly unstoppable. They blew out Wagner in their opening round by nearly 30 points, pretty much what you expect to see in an opening round game when you've got a 1 seed against a 16 seed. North Carolina had 2 starters score at least 20 points. They dominated the boards just like you would expect. They shot the ball extremely well from 3 and from the free throw line. They didn't turn the ball over. This team is just great. There's no way around that. They were clearly the best team in the ACC this season, and they're continuing to show that here in the NCAA tournament. More important than their first round win was their second round win, where they took down Michigan State very convincingly. UNC jumped out to a 9-point lead at halftime and just built on that lead in the second half. We saw 4 of the Tar Heels starters score in double figures. Their bench production was not great, but also didn't get very many minutes, which is kind of a sign that the coach doesn't trust them that much. They did lose the battle of the boards in this one, but I guess that's not a huge shocker going up against a defense and rebounding oriented team like Michigan State. The Tar Heels once again shot the ball extremely well from 3-point range and from the free throw line. That's something we can pretty much count on against this team, it feels like. Over the course of their season, North Carolina was clearly a very, very solid rebounding team, very good on defense, and one of the best offensive teams in the nation. They come into this game only minus 4.5. This spread almost feels like a trap. It's so good. This is probably going to be my biggest bet of the day, guys, especially with Alabama possibly not even being fully healthy for this one. Alabama's 19-15 against the spread. That's fine, but UNC is 21-15 against the spread this season. That's a much better number. They're the much better team. Give me the Tar Heels minus 4.5 in this one. Could be one of my bigger bets of the day. Last but not least, we've got one of the most exciting games on the docket. We've got Illinois going up against Iowa State. Illinois comes into this game. They've had pretty easy matchups through the first 2 rounds. Going up against Morehead State, we saw the Illini come away with the 85-69 win in that game. Illinois just had way too much offense in this matchup. We saw Terrence Shannon Jr. score 26 points. The Illini shot over 45% from three-point range, knocking down 12 threes, shooting over 54% from the field in general, and they won the battle of the boards. This was just a situation where Morehead State was overmatched. Illinois did get off to something of a slow start in that game, so that's a little bit interesting, but teams often get off to a slow start in their first game of the NCAA tournament, so we're not going to read too much into that. In the second round, they were going up against a very tough Duquesne team where it seemed like Illinois might struggle a little bit. They absolutely did not. They scored 50 points in the first half of that game, outscoring Duquesne 50-26. Absolutely insane. We saw Terrence Shannon Jr. go off for 30 points in that game. We saw Marcus Damas score 22 points. 4 Illinois starters scored in double figures. Once again, we didn't see too much from their bench, but that's not really something you expect to see too much from here in the NCAA tournament. Just in general, this Illinois team is looking absolutely solid. They look pretty dominant, but they haven't faced the toughest opponents, and they are about to face an extremely tough opponent in Iowa State. The Cyclones come into this game fresh off of a blowout win in their opening round over San Diego State. Once again, we saw a team start off a little bit slow against a less than stellar opponent. Maybe they were looking past the Jackrabbits a little bit, but they used a solid second half to give us the win and the cover in that game. Iowa State is a great defensive team that mixes in very solid offense and shooting. They shot 11 of 23 from deep in that win over South Dakota State, so very solid performance from them there. They were actually even on the boards in that game, which is a little bit of a concern. We'd like to see them be a slightly better rebounding team than they actually are. They're not a great rebounding team. They really haven't been an amazing rebounding team over the course of their season. Going up against Washington State, they ended up winning that game 67-56. Another very solid win over a plucky Washington State team. This was a battle of 2 very good defensive teams, but once again, Iowa State came through with the win and the cover. They shot 50% from three-point range in that game. They only allowed 5 of 23 shooting from the Cougars, so that was a very solid performance. They once again got out-rebounded, though. They got out-rebounded by 2 in this game, so that's a little bit concerning, but they forced 13 turnovers and only had 6 turnovers of their own. That's an incredibly solid defensive performance. We really like what we've seen from Iowa State so far in this tournament. It's going to be very tough for them going up against an offensive-minded Illinois team. We see that Iowa State is currently -1.5 for this game. This is probably the one I have the least confidence in. I really don't know what to expect in this one. Who's going to win, offense or defense? Clearly, Iowa State's the defensive team. Illinois is the offensive team. If you're forcing me to bet this game, I'm going to be on Iowa State. It seems like defense tends to win out in late season spots like this where it's an offense first team against a defense first team, and this is a different kind of defense first team. Iowa State can really score the ball. I'm a little bit concerned about their rebounding though, and I'm a little bit concerned if there's anyone in the nation that can stop Terrence Shannon Jr. He is an absolute monster. We are a little bit comforted by the fact that Iowa State is 25-10-1 against the spread, but Illinois is also 20-13-3 against the spread, so both these teams have great trends in this one. Give me Iowa State -1.5 as a small lean in this one. We're going to jump over real quick to the NBA. There's only 2 NBA games on the slate, so we're going to go ahead and cover them for you guys in this one. We see Boston going up against Atlanta. This is something of a revenge spot for the Boston Celtics. They just lost straight up to Atlanta, blowing an absolutely huge lead. The Hawks overcame a 30-point deficit to beat the Celtics straight up. Boston is -13 in this game. They're not amazing against the spread team on the road. They're 18-16-3 against the spread, playing away from home. They should be relatively healthy for this game. There's a decent chance that we see Drew Holiday sit out for this one, but other than that, they should pretty much be at full strength for this game. The Atlanta Hawks are playing on a back-to-back in this one, and they're playing at home. They're only 13-22 against the spread at home and 4-8 against the spread on no rest. Last night, we saw them beat the Portland Trail Blazers, so they played pretty hard in that game. They won 120-106. They're playing well. They've won 3 in a row, but that win over Boston cannot be making the Celtics feel good. They've been getting absolutely killed for that collapse in the media, so I think we see Boston come out with a statement win. Give me Boston -13 in this one. Looking at the over-under in this game, we see Boston's a 50-50 team. We see Atlanta is 54.3% to the over. I'm not super interested in the over-under in this game. I feel like give me the under probably, since Boston's going to be out there to really shut down the Hawks offense, but I don't know. We could see Boston score 150 points in this game possibly if they're mad enough, so I'm not going to be on the over-under in this one. If you're making me though, maybe give me a little taste of the under. In our last pick of the day, in the last NBA game of the day, we've got the Milwaukee Bucks going on the road to take on the New Orleans Pelicans. Milwaukee comes into this game fresh off of a tough overtime loss to the Lakers. That was an absolutely insane game there at the end. It was the Lakers without LeBron, and they really found a way. We can see that there's still some big problems with the Milwaukee defense. Even with Chris Middleton back, things just aren't looking like this squad can really be a title contender. At least that's what it feels like to me. Obviously, if you've got Giannis and Dame Lillard, you would think you could make something happen, but that is not the way it's felt like. Honestly, the Lillard trade feels like it's been a downgrade for the Bucks over the course of the season, although it also feels like Doc Rivers is slowly figuring things out with this roster, so I guess we'll see what ends up actually happening here. The Bucks are taking on the New Orleans Pelicans in this game. The Pelicans come into this one fresh off of a tough loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. New Orleans looks like they should be healthy for this game. Obviously, they're not going to have Brandon Ingram back as he deals with that bone bruise in his knee, but just in general, aside from him, they should be ready to go. Zion is going to be ready to go, so that's who we're really interested in for the Pelicans. They've been playing pretty well lately. Obviously, they are coming off that loss to OKC, but they've been beating the bad teams that they're supposed to beat. It's going to be very interesting to see them go up against an elite team like the Milwaukee Bucks. Are they elite? It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. In this game, we see New Orleans getting 2 points. This is a bounce back spot for Milwaukee, but they're a very mediocre 15-20 against spread on the road. We see the Pelicans are 19-15 against the spread at home. Both of these teams have trends pointing to the under, especially New Orleans. They're 56.3% to the under. This is a tough one for me, guys. It looks like we should be slightly on the under, but New Orleans and Milwaukee, neither one of these teams play amazing defense, in my opinion. So maybe give me a slight taste of the over. Not really going to be on the over-under in this game, to be honest, and I'm barely going to be on the against the spread number. Give me just a little taste of Milwaukee in this game, but this is the smallest of small leans. That's all the games we have for today. Hit that like button for good luck on all your bets, and subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description and check out StumpTheSpread.com, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for more sports betting action.